With a couple hundred executive orders on the way, what is the risk that the Trump administration may lose the message in the welter of new ideas? I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angles brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, it's very exciting to see all the new stuff coming down the pike. And when I heard about something like 100 or 200 executive orders that are on President Trump's desk and are being signed even as we speak right now, I thought, this is great. Change. We love change, and especially in the areas that are of most concern to conservatives. All that is great. And then I remembered what happened at Apple when Steve Jobs, was there at the founding of the company, and then he later essentially got fired, and he was gone for a few years, and then he came back to the company. And one of the first things he did, Stephen Green, as you're well aware, is he came in and said, look, we have way too many products. We're going to focus on like 4. And we're going to just clean out the rest of, as you like to call it, the cruft, and simplify the product selection as well as just the whole process of developing products. Steve, if you had to look right now at what you're seeing on the table for the incoming Trump administration, and you were coming in with that Jobsian-like mindset, is there any way that you could kind of maybe categorize the approach that the president is taking into something that's simple enough to easily convey to the American people and say, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this, this, and this, and maybe that?
Yeah, he's doing the Steve Jobs thing. He's clearing out the cruft with those executive orders. I looked this up during the backstage, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it. I asked Grok, which is quickly becoming my AI of choice, even over ChatGPT, that among his executive orders and actions, revocation of 78 Biden-era executive orders. Trump signed an order rescinding those, including related to racial equity, climate, migration, gender policy, and more. He's rescinding Biden's stuff all over the place. Because to go back to the Apple analogy in the 1990s, Apple's product portfolio just had gotten huge and unwieldy, and they were making stuff that wasn't making any money. They had completely lost focus on their core competencies. Well, we could say that was the United States under the Joe Biden cabal. We were declaring 57 genders. I was joking with you guys about that tweet I saw from a left-leaning woman about her lesbian friend who said Biden broke her on Lesbian Awareness Day by inviting 2 men to be the lesbian spokespersons. 2 men in skirts, I should say. So Biden, this Biden White House just loaded up the country with all of this cruft. And that is mostly what Trump is doing with his executive orders, is undoing a lot of the stuff that Biden did through executive actions, and thus are easy to undo. And like Jobs, and I think maybe this is the point you were trying to get to, like Jobs, once the cruft is cleared, Trump has to present a streamlined product line. He's got to say, these are the things we're going to do. And I think he's run on these. We've got border security. We've got getting some peace in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. We've got a trade war to continue with China, and there's probably one other of importance, but that's going to be the streamlined product line. What most impresses me is, like Jobs, how focused Trump has become in his 4 years in the wilderness between his 2 terms. There were 2 biographies written, 2 major biographies of Steve Jobs that I read. One was the famous Walter Isaacson one that I think everybody who read it, one Steve Jobs biography, read that book. Yeah. And the other was written by 2 gentlemen whose names I can't remember, that was called Becoming Steve Jobs. And there was something that kind of bugged me about the Isaacson biography. It told all these great stories about how this really self-centered jerk became the head of the world's most valuable company. But it didn't explain how such a self-centered jerk was able to do that. And the genius of the other book, Becoming Steve Jobs, is it focused much more certainly much more than Isaacson did, on Jobs' years in the wilderness, when he was working with Pixar, when he was working with Next, which was a computer company that he founded after he got kicked out of Apple. And in the process of turning Pixar into a success, and in the process of just keeping Next alive. And by the way, Next did become a huge success because it's the operating system developed under Next that runs your iPhone, that runs your modern Mac, that runs your Apple Watch, all of that stuff. But it was in the process of running those two companies that made Steve Jobs into the person who came back to Apple and was able to do those things. Similarly, I think Trump's 4 years in the wilderness gave him a focus and a clarity that we haven't really seen yet, and we're just catching glimmers of. I'm very excited.
Bill Whittle, to piggyback on what Steve was starting to talk about there, the more proactive agenda, not just striking down the previous administration's efforts, but looking to the future. You tend to have a real facility with rhetoric and the ability to express ideas in compelling ways. And I know I'm just dropping this on you, so you don't get to spend hundreds of hours honing your essay. But if you had to speak at a public event on behalf of the Trump administration in front of maybe a group of, let's call them fourth graders, and say, boys and girls, here's what your new president of the United States is going to do in the next 4 years. This is our objective. Is there a way that you could clearly and simply encapsulate all that you're seeing happening now in a way that not only would make people understand, but would make them supportive?
Yeah, I could try that in 1 second. I just want to go real quickly to what you used in your opening. You said, is there any danger of losing the message in the welter of new ideas? And when you were saying that, I thought, on some level, it's like the welter of new ideas is the message. That's what's so exciting to me, is that just everything is on the table now. All of these hidebound, fossilized avenues and ways of doing things are just being smashed by executive order. They're being smashed in the nature of the people who he's appointed to come in and run these agencies. The whole country is a welter of new ideas, and that's, to me, the most exciting part of it.
Well, here's why I said it that way, Bill, because I can see the risk of becoming another sort of FDR with the 1,000 ideas and all the stuff you got done in the first 100 days and the brain trust and all that kind of stuff.
So basically, if I was talking to fourth graders about this, I would say, okay, so listen up, kids. The fact of the matter is that we're a special family here in this country. We're not saying we're better than other families, but we're different, and we're special. And there's a lot of things that make us special, and one of the things that makes us the most special is the fact that because we're so different from each other, we have to test and try things out so that things can be made to work for everybody. We have spent a lot of time squashing that ability to convince each other of what good ideas are. And what we're trying to do now going forward is we're trying to make this special family great again. We're going to go back to the things that make us unique and different and special, and we're going to concentrate on those things. And those things require that we be honest and open with each other, but that we not be mean. That we can come in and everybody gets to bring in an idea, and maybe it's a good idea and maybe it's a bad idea. There's no way to know, but we're going to talk about these ideas and we're going to test them out. And if it's a bad idea, that's okay. It's much better to come with a bad idea than to sit there with no idea at all. So that's basically what we're talking about doing. We're talking about making this family special and great again by getting out of the way of being able to bring our best ideas to the table, talk about them, and then agree that, wow, this is a fantastic thing, we should try. And we try it. And sometimes we have a really good idea and we try it, and that idea turns out to have been a great idea, but just doesn't work when you try it in the real world. And that's a lesson too. So we don't make that mistake again. But this ability to have this ongoing dynamic conversation and this kind of perpetual show and tell, instead of sitting there and being told what to do and what to think, we're turning this entire country into one giant show and tell, and get your best ideas out and buff them up and get ready to put them out there and get ready to defend them, because if it's a good idea, we're going to use it.
You know, there's an old story about Federal Express that I know was promoted by Tom Peters, who wrote In Search of Excellence with Bob Waterman back in the 1980s. And he was talking about the importance of clarity of vision in an organization. And he said that if you went to a FedEx warehouse in the middle of the night and found a guy sweeping the floor and asked him what he was doing, he would tell you that he was sweeping the floors so that they could deliver packages absolutely positively overnight. In other words, everybody in the organization was tied in to the vision of the organization. And that's, I think, one of the obligations of leadership is to be able to boil it down so that there's an expression in the Old Testament that basically says you need to have a message that's crisp and clear enough that you can write it down on a tablet. Back then it was clay tablets and in a very small amount of writing, and that the messenger could run. And so you had to have the message be clear enough so that messenger could get it to the next point and convey it with clarity. I saw some of that in the opening remarks that Secretary of State Marco Rubio made to his new staff at the State Department. And it was exciting to see how it was words coming out of Marco's mouth in his distinctive way of speaking and thinking of things, but it was clearly the vision of the President of the United States, without using the President's terminology or his kind of interesting way of speaking. In essence, in organizational development, the message is the method. And so your message has to mirror the method. If you want clarity, if you want simplicity, if you want efficiency, if you want effectiveness, you need to speak in that way as well. And you need to be able to boil it down, not just for rhetorical purposes or just for marketing purposes, but for the efficiency and effectiveness of the organization. I don't know if anybody has done it better, but I think that President Trump would do well to first thing every morning after he's done giving thanks to God for putting him in this responsibility and begging for wisdom from the Lord in order to be able to conduct this, if he were to say to himself, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. If he would start off with that simple mission statement, he would find that everything that he really needs to do falls neatly in those categories. And anything that doesn't fall neatly in those categories can be tabled, can be shelved, can be put into a drawer and let go until the next administration. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.